So good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3. I hope you had a good night's rest after yesterday's party. You certainly look very relaxed and fresh. So before moving on to today's very exciting program, I'd like to walk you through the status of our points for the donation for the Ukraine. So here you go. Look at that. We're almost there, people. So As today is the last day of our event, I'd like to encourage everyone to put all your questions in the Q&A session of the app and post all your pictures on our social channel on Yammer. We were certainly missing some photos from yesterday, so I'm pretty sure you have those the party pictures. So just go ahead and do that. Look at that. We've got €1,000, $1,000 already for the CSR event. We made that target, so let's top up these jars. Each and every bar on this chart means $1,000 for the Ukraine, so don't be shy. And now, moving on to today's program. First, I'd like to welcome our business partners who joined us for the innovation sessions. Okay. And we will start with the innovation topic today. I'd like to introduce you our keynote speaker, who is a healthcare futurist, driven by the aim to make healthcare delightful, personalized, and preventive. And he'll show us how we can create a world where we get sick no more. So please welcome Koen Kas on stage.
Good morning. We're going to start with a Schlager. No, we're not going to do that. So if I can have my slides, would be fantastic. Thank you. I first have to point something out. Never believe someone who claims he can predict the future. No one can predict the future, really not. But I really believe you, together, can co-create the future and can really be able to make a number or rocket launch. And that's what we're going to try to do today. Now, let's try to see how we're going to do that. I think we're going to start with the end. A few years ago, a festival got started in Cardiff in Wales, which was called Before I Die. And people got asked, what do you want to do before you die? Three things, always. First thing, logical. People want to leave a legacy, a name, a seat, a patent, a medicine, a drug, whatever. Two, people want to belong to something. You don't want to die alone. You want to be part of a community. And third, no one regrets the things he or she has been doing, but the majority of people regret the experiences they haven't had. And that is what you have to build. What if we can build a healthcare system which is so full of experiences that it's both close to magic that we're going to call delight? Look to this. This is Be My Eyes. This is a little app which blind people use. Believe me, blind people do use smartphones as well. And sometimes I reach a place where I want to see something. And I have a number of buddies, 12 on average, where I can send a text message to and ask them, can you help me what I don't see? Try to do that. Sometimes I get a call from a little lady in a shop. She wants to buy a scarf and she asks me, well, does the blue fit with what I want to buy? And you help her. That's a pretty cool experience. How could we extend that to our patients? A digital tool, building community, and providing me an experience. Now, just as a background, I'm trained as a molecular oncologist. I've seen your world. I've seen cancer patients. I had a fantastic team. We developed a humanized antibody to treat brain cancer in children. I think that more confronting than a child, 6-year-old with brain cancer, it will probably never get. And the best thing we could do with these children was send them on a camp. And that camp was called, not kidding, Delight. And that was my first kind of eye-opening moment that maybe we should think in a new way to deal with healthcare. But my real eye-opening moment was this. The first time that I come in part of China, out west, and learn about the system, 2,500 years old, in which the doctor got paid as long as people in the village remained healthy. And once you got sick, you no longer had to pay. You heard me say that. That's how the system was run. How cool is that? I think that's the coolest way to build value-based, outcome-based medicine, right? And basically, that's your dream as well, if I look to this slide. But it's a little bit different. Huh? You want to stop, well, not stop working till you create a future without disease. And you want to do it currently with drugs with CAR-T, right? What if we do it with two things? Also predicting disease and preventing disease, and bring these things together. How rich can you build a company? Believe me, by extending your business a little bit earlier in the pipe, I can think you can make a much bigger company than you currently already have. Now, if you try to find out why we lost that Chinese model, this is the reason. I couldn't explain it better than what Molière once said. Doctors, they use drugs they hardly know anything about, right? They buy them from you, trying to cure disease they know even less about, trying to help patients they know nothing about. With all respect, your doctor knows nothing about you. And I'm going to try to illustrate that with this slide. If I send a package with UPS, with FedEx, from here in Amsterdam to Barcelona, I can trace my package on a website, and every 5 minutes I know where my package is, right? Which I find absolutely normal. My kids completely freaked out when, during Corona, a package which was ordered and should arrive at 11:55 was not there at 11:56. So you're used to being able to track something super secure in time. On the other hand, my average patient, my cancer patient, my Alzheimer's patient, my diabetic patient, is 8,750 hours a year by himself or herself, not linked to me as a healthcare provider. So a FedEx package is better off than a patient. That's not normal. And that is what technology is going to change. We're going to try to enter into the real world of our patient and try to see whether we can help him better with more than we just provide him now, right? And a number of companies do that well. The ones you see at the left and at the right of your name, right? Maybe in a freaky fashion, because they tell you what the book is you have to read next. And I don't know whether you want to be part of that list, but there is one thing which distinguishes you from all the other guys. You know nothing about your patient neither. Well, not a lot, right? So can we find out ways to know more and to become a better pharma company? And become a better pharma company by helping our customers better. So your end user is the patient, right? Your customer is me as a hospital, is me as a healthcare provider. So can you let me shine so that you make better business and help a patient better? I think we cannot be against that, right? Let's try to see whether we can manage to do that. What is this? Google Street View. So Google is currently walking with camels in every desert to make pictures and to put deserts on Google Maps. There is a reason to do that. Let me take it one step further. What do you do if you want to buy solar panels for your house? What do you want to find out? Whether it makes sense, right? This is Google Street View as well. Google knows exactly where my house is on the planet. It's here. And I get 1,800 hours of sunshine bomb on my roof. And then Google added one layer. They added one algorithm which allows me to calculate the size of my roof, which is a number, 2. The division of these two numbers tells me how much I save, right? So by simply adding one algorithm to a data layer, they made a new service. Look to this. This is Google Street View, Google Maps as well. This is me in a wheelchair. There is a number of places I cannot reach, well, I couldn't reach in the past because disabled people cannot get there. No longer. If there is a new spot on the planet where I can get, I can leave a drop on Google Maps, and all of a sudden, patients, they make a new service for patients. How cool is that? So Google just provides the background, the backbone. So my question to you is, could you provide me a backbone where I, as a patient, can start putting pins on? So you'll learn from me on a platform you built. I'm still with you? Yeah, right? Okay. So how do you find out how to work with patients? This is finding Wally, right? Do you see him? It's here. Look to this. This is a patient sitting in a chair, watching the ceiling, And it's his idea to say, well, why are ceilings so boring? And he made lamps. Well, he came up with the idea to make lamps which are Wally lamps. That's pretty cool. That's a solution built by patients because the patient solved a friction, right? But sometimes that is even not good enough. You might recall 9/11. 9/11, the towers being hit in New York. And the gentleman at the right was Minister of Defense, and he made a super famous quote. He said, well, we, FBI, CIA, we know what we know, sure. We also know what we do not know. Bin Laden is hiding somewhere, but we don't know where. And then he said something really fantastic. He said, but our biggest threat, opportunity, if you like, are the things we do not know we don't know, the unknown unknowns. And that's a fascinating opportunity, because an unknown unknown provides you as some way to provide me with a new experience I didn't expect to get from you. Let me try to explain this better. This is my birthday wish list. And in yellowish is my bucket list with all the things I would like to have. So if you give me a present from the yellowish part, I'm happy, right? But if you give me something from the green part, something I didn't expect to get, I'm super happy. That is what delight is. Delight are unknown unknowns, which provide me a new experience, which is so wow that I cannot top it. I can make CAR-T cells as well, but maybe I cannot bring a super delightful experience around that. And that makes the difference between a company which creates delight and a company which is simply a pharma company. Right? By the way, do you remember the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time you unboxed an iPhone? That was a pretty cool experience. My CAR-T experience should be the same. The unboxing experience from getting it out of the box. Well, how does that look like? By the way, delight is something which should enter into your DNA as of today. Never hire a chief digital officer. Maybe you have one, but it's a joke, but hire a chief delight officer. Well, don't hire a chief delight officer. All of you are chief delights officer. Each team of you should be thinking about what can I do for my partner, for my patient, for my client, for my child, for my mom, for my dad, to reduce friction and to bring something new in his or her life. And incidentally, when I launched my book on delight, I used this as an ad. This was 4 years ago. This was a shill on CAR-T therapy, which was brought from home to the clinic with an automatic tool, and he could take his dog to the hospital. We worked with J&J, dealing with CAR-T patients, asking them, what do you really like? Things like, can you please take care that my partner is being taken care of? I'm strong, I can handle cancer. But my partner is so much afraid of me getting sick that her mental health serves way more help than me getting better. That's a fantastic opportunity to bring beyond the pill in one package. Oh, by the way, you know what the biggest fear is for elderly people when they have to go to the hospital? That is, who will take care for the dog? At the Center Hospital in Brussels, we installed a kennel. Patients can bring the dog to the hospital, reduces stress, makes them better faster. That's delight as well. It's not always digital. Sometimes it's super basic brain knowledge. And then you start to see these kind of reports appear. I guess everybody has read that. There seems to be a gap between pharma companies explaining something to healthcare professionals and what healthcare professionals really like. And so when we spent time in the briefing for this session, I had the honor to work with a fantastic team, with Doro, with Uta. I heard that this was a topic. How do you kind of make sure that information which goes to the healthcare provider is what they expect to get, and how do we have to deal with the new reality that people might be okay to do things in a digital fashion? Now, by the way, if you think about what a healthcare professional expects from you, well, it has to do with, well, the drug, but if you can start to think about educating on all the things which happen before and all the things which happen after me taking drugs, well, the spectrum of things you will have to educate me about starts to become pretty enormous, but pretty, well, exciting, right? And then you start to see, in a few years, the entire idea that we have to be with our healthcare professionals in an omni-channel fashion. We have to make sure that, depending on the interaction they have with the outside world, things are, well, in sync. But to be honest, to me, very often, omni-channel is something like this. I mean, it's a lot of input where I still have to find out and decide where I find and how I collect all the bits and pieces coming to me in one place. So what if we start to think about an easier way? You have either an Apple or Microsoft, whatever, a PC. For people having a PC, did you notice that since a year and a half, when you open the screen, you have a nice picture, but you also have, it's called Spotlight, sometimes pieces of information. It says, this is the highest mountain in Europe, or this is an aisle where the temperature is never below, whatever, 25 degrees. Do you know which aisle this is, right? Imagine that this screen, which is my screen on my PC, starts to tell, did you know that a CAR-T patient is interested in finding out X? And you start to provide me bits and pieces of information every morning on the screen I open every single day. Could that make sense? Or could this make sense? This is the most used app amongst physicians. It's called Figure One. And Figure One is simply an app which was launched to make a picture from my rash, to send it to my colleague doctor and ask him, can you confirm that I think this is simply eczema? It was kind of a WeChat or WhatsApp for doctors. And it started to become an encyclopedia of information where doctors said, wow, if I'm not sure about something, where shall I find it? Maybe on Figure One. So they became, out of an interaction tool, one of the biggest databases of medical knowledge. A super simple app. And then comes a company like Novartis saying 2 weeks ago, well, we're going to try to make some Netflix thing for doctors. But bear with me, this is far, far, far away from what even Netflix is. So park that for a second, right? But the point I want to make is the following. 2 points. You know that people no longer need to go to school to get education. People find online courses like this one, Coursera. And you find 1 billion people, which maybe don't have schools, but learn what they have to learn online. This is a course which was launched when that virus entered the world, and you got taught to do COVID tracing in an online digital course. The point I want to make, that was one spot. That was not omni-channel. Coursera was the place I got taught to do that, right? Who's heard about Masterclass already? You hear me come. What is G&G on Masterclass? This is Masterclass. If I want to learn to cook, I go to Masterclass. Who's my teacher? Blumenthal. Or another famous cook, Jamie Oliver. If I want to learn to write music, who's my teacher? Metallica. What can I learn from you? How exciting would it be that you give the CAR-T masterclass, you give them CAR-T masterclass, one spot only. It's no push, it's pull. How cool would that be? I'm still with you, eh? You're best in class in things. So try to be unique so that you bring people together to that one place and make it so exciting that I get interested. And I know you're doing these things, but the fact that educating me can be done in new visual ways, I think is something really to invest on. If I'm a cancer patient and the doctor tells me the big C, after 6 seconds, I'm really blanking out. And he keeps on telling for 3 minutes what is going to happen, that I will go to a clinic and blah, blah, blah. I cannot even digest these things. But I will have time when I come home, maybe next week, to digest this information. How does the information package look like, which you provide me as a patient, as a doctor, for me as a partner, where you can make sure that all the things I should know are there to digest when I'm ready for it, when it's time to do this. And yes, it's for me as a patient, but also for your doctor. This is level X. This is the first game platform where healthcare professionals can learn new digital tools, and they can get rewards if they do that well. I live in a country, in Belgium, where 2 weeks ago we had an amazing event in one of the largest sports venues. We had an event where 16,000 gamers came together to watch people game. It looked like this. It looks like this, well, a little bit bigger. How cool would it be that the healthcare professionals you work with, they show how they operate. They show how good they are. And they teach each other, well, while others can watch. Not just me as a doctor, not just me as someone interested in, but we start to think about healthcare as something so spectacular that maybe as a patient I watch this basically as my future doctor practicing the coolest new tool he will apply in 5 years' time in my life. And for that reason, I really believe that we should start to think about being present, not just in the physical world, but start to be thinking about, can we be present into a virtual world, which we're going to call the metaverse, where you start to see the first glimpses of. And I'm going to show a real exciting one in a second. But we start to see things like games, the Sims, which all of a sudden are teaching gamers that sometimes it's time to relax. And you have to take your game kind of avatars into a wellness room. And before you can keep on playing, you have to learn what mindfulness means, what yoga means. That cutting your nails, well, letting someone cut your nails, brings you some rest. That's not something you need to do in the physical world. Maybe you can teach me that into a virtual world. And therefore, and I guess you've already been looking into that, we're going to see the launch of the mall pretty soon. The mall will be a 15-floor kind of virtual world where you have Gucci and where you have Rolls-Royce and where I do expect to see J&J as well. What are the services which you offer me in that kind of virtual space, and why should you? I think the reason why you should is this. There is a lot of things I'm willing to talk about. I'm diabetic, okay, I tell you. I got cancer, I tell that to my friends as well. But you know what is super hard to tell? That sometimes I have dark thoughts, I have fears, I'm anxious. Mental issues are super hard to convey to people. I don't even tell it to my wife, that I sometimes think about. But apparently, we, and believe me, Gen Z for sure, Gen Z is your future kind of client, they are okay to deal with physical, well, with digital avatars. And so one of the first digital therapeutics which entered the market just a few months ago, called Endeavor, is a game, it's like playing Roblox, to treat little boys and girls with attention deficit disorder by playing a game into the metaverse. Since last week, it became part of Roblox, it will become part of Minecraft. So we're going to see the first games, digital therapeutics, FDA approved, entering into a digital world. So it's almost kind of obvious that we will start to do these things as well. And I think that is the perfect introduction to really explain why I believe that we can go back to the Chinese doctor and that we really have the tools at hand to start building together bits and pieces to basically clone that Chinese doctor who was 24/7 with me into a digital version, into what I'm going to call a digital twin. And that's what I'm going to try to explain you now. So I'm going to try to mention a number of developments which together allow me to start entering into the real world of my patient and become kind of a guardian angel so that I can see things from happening before they occur. And so I can bypass things or kind of reschedule things, just like Netflix says, well, maybe you've seen Afterlife with Ricky Gervais. He just got a new comedy show out. I guess this might be something for you. I didn't even realize that show was out. I got that kind of as an inform. And so to make that avatar ID clear, and to make sure that you don't see that as something freaky, I would like to show you the inside of a hospital in Helsinki, which to my opinion is one of the coolest hospitals. There's a few, but one of the coolest hospitals I've seen the last few years. If you enter the hospital, the first thing you see is a big aquarium, really from here till the ceiling. And in the aquarium, you have fish swimming around. And these fish, they're drowned by the patients coming to the hospital, which make a drawing, scan it, and perhaps the fish gets uploaded into a tube system till it gets into the aquarium. Cool, right. But the real cool thing is the following. When I enter the hospital, I'm no longer Koen Kas. I can pick an avatar. I can pick, for instance, that I will be the strongest rabbit with the biggest ears and the strongest teeth. And by the time I come to the floor to see my doctor, they're not calling Koen Kas. You know who they call? That rabbit. And all of a sudden, that avatar destigmatizes me and makes me a new character in my new world. I still get goosebumps from explaining this, because it feels like, wow, these guys are going to take care for me. How does the hospital look like with doing that with Janssen Insight? Do you have PCs, by the way, or is it all Apple? Both. If you have a PC, there is a small, tiny label at the left or the right part. It says Intel Insight. It gives you the trust that the chip is fine. How cool would it be? And in the future, we have hospitals with Janssen Insight. It gives me the trust that the experience is, wow, that one, a delightful one. Try to think about one application tonight. No, next week, not tonight, by next week. And you make a catalog, and you collect all the IDs. You have some IDs in Germany and in France and whatever, and the collected knowledge, we're going to co-create a world of your IDs, creates a tableau, a menu of things you can offer as a J&J inside the hospital. Okay. I'm still with you, Okay. So guardian angels, 3. The first one, I always show, there's a few slides I'm using again because I always like them just to see how people react. And in this audience, it will be easy. But anyone having an idea what this is? It's a hard disk from IBM, 1954. It required a plane to get transported, right? The hard disk in your smartphone is 1 billion times smaller, cheaper, more powerful. Until a few years ago, that was the most impressive technological endeavor built by men and women. The increase in computer power every 18 months with 100%, no longer so. The most impressive technological feat built by men and women is our ability to identify our human genome, our DNA insights, no longer for $3 billion in something like 10 years, but we can do that now for €750 in 3 hours with the device you see here at the right. This one. The question is not so much when will that happen and who will pay for that. The question is, what are we going to do with that? Look to this. This is my father. Well, this was my father, who got a double infection of the lungs, was in the ICU before Corona. And then what people try to do is get some liquid out of the lungs, grow it on a plate, hope that the bacterium grows, and based on that decide which antibiotic to give, right? After 3 days, nothing was growing on that plate. and the guy was ready to die till we used this device. And we sequenced the liquids in the lung, identified every bacterium, every virus ever seen before, compared against the database from every bacteria ever seen before, and in 3 hours' time, we got the right antibiotic. That's from 3 days to die to 3 hours to treat. That's better, right? But not good enough, because he got sick in the first place, right? And so this is next level. A few years ago, the state of Hawaii sues 2 of your colleagues because they bring a certain cardiovascular product to the market in the entire United States, just like they do in the rest of the world and also in Hawaii. But people in Hawaii, they are descendants from people in Southeast Asia. They have 3 digits out of the 3 billion, which metabolize this cardiovascular compound faster, and they need more. And so, basically, the pharma company had to adopt the prescription based on the genetic profile of someone coming from Hawaii. If I would prescribe that drug to my patient, not knowing his genomic profile, there is 6% chance that he's not leaving my ER because I'm dosing too high or too little. So it sounds a pipe dream, but this is really going to happen. This is the first compound drug, which is 3D printed, which I can really adapt to my genetic profile, make the concentration a little bit higher or a bit lower. If we're going to do that, then we start to be able to really think about what personalized medicine could really be. And then you start to see these things. This is already a few years old. Websites which allow me, as a cancer patient, which got to know which mutation I have, well, to find your trial. You don't have to find me. Just like in a Google search, I can type in, I have, whatever, colon cancer with the BRAF mutation, who is running trials on that? That one you know. But look to this. This is the state of Singapore. Singapore has launched OncoShot. And OncoShot is a trial-finding platform where every citizen in Singapore can find the best care on the planet, and they bring it to him or her. This is like having a Google Street View backbone for your citizens. I might show something else. Singapore is building on top of that. Maybe I should mention that now. Every citizen in Singapore will get a watch, and basically will get rewards for every day he or she lives healthy, preventing them to become sick, preventing them to becoming your client. So be part of that thinking as well in order to remain relevant, right? And so that entire idea, can we use genetics? Sure. But if I tell my patient, a candidate colon cancer patient, there is a chance that the majority of these men say, well, I'm not interested in the follow-up because I'm not so much interested in a tube in the back of my body. We no longer do that. We now have 360-degree cameras, which we swallow as a pill, which make better pictures than we could do before, and which turn 1 in 5 men saying, I want to know, into 4 in 5. So technology allows me to change people's behavior. That's fascinating. That's an unknown to a patient. For a number of hospitals, it's pretty scary. We work with a number of hospitals, and exactly 1 year ago, I was in a hospital which was planning to build a new facility with endoscopy. And I showed one of these new pills, and they didn't know. Now, knowing this, they redesigned the entire flow, because this is something I can do in 3 hours. And in normal endoscopy, it takes 1 day. It's redesigning a process, right? And this is also redesigning a process. This is a hospital in Haarlem, and they designed a man's cave for men to come to the hospital to get colon cancer or prostate cancer screened while they see the paraphernalia from their favorite sports club. This is an example of J&J Insight. The company, it's a company which builds these things. It designs these things, and so that's what I was mentioning. Can we see the hospital of the future with the label J&J Insight? Now let me take you one step further. I got my genome sequenced, fully sequenced, 11 years ago. That's my job. Every week I understand less about it. The complexity is really high. But at least one thing, well, I know a few things. I get blind. I don't know when, but I'm predisposed to lose my, well, sight because of a degradation of the macula, which is the back of my eye. And I'm really fantastically happy that I know. Because since I know, I take one supplement, which I get from the pharmacy, which basically, if it doesn't harm, delays the degradation of the back of my eye and basically gives me a higher chance to delay it, right? But the real exciting point was when the first software as a medical device entered the market. It was actually the second, which is a piece of software which allows me to scan my eye myself. I can watch the blood vessels in the back of my eye. Well, the algorithm on my smartphone can. And all of a sudden, if it starts to get worse, before I notice it, the drugs which are out there will work. And this gives me superpowers, because I will be able, based on this, to prevent a disease from striking. I think in 5 to 6, 7 years from now, it will become ethically unacceptable not to know your genome. By the way, this is something coming out soon. This is Anura. This will be part of your Teams call or Zoom call. Scanning your face, making a video, looking to blood pressure and heart rate, we can do that already. But now we have the first data that we can predict diabetes by watching someone's face. Because the glucose, which is turned around in my blood, bound to HbA1c, can be measured by a delta in the color of my face. The coolest thing we're doing is the following. You know that my heart is linked to my kidney, right? If my heart starts to fail, my kidney starts to delay function. And I get waste in my urine. You'll hear me come. We have the first data that I can see a failing kidney by looking to your face. This is life-changing. This is a selfie, which predicts things from happening in time. And nevertheless, this entire biology thing is just part of the game. My biology defines who I am, maybe for whatever, 20, 25%. The majority of things are the things which are happening in my environment, my lifestyle, and my social determinants of health. What are the two most determining factors which define how old you will get? Do you know? The age your parents will have when they die, and your zip code, your postal code, where you live. This is Chicago. Suburbs during the tube of Chicago. There is a life expectancy of 9 quality years, depending on where you live in a city like Chicago. This is 2022. If that is part of the game, well, we can do really better. And we can start to incorporate things like, well, the weather, things like pollution, things like how does my neighborhood look like, really into kind of our armatorium of tools. And technology will simply be a way to collect these data and to make sure that all of a sudden as a doctor, we can start to be able to, well, know so much more from our patients that we can become better doctors, better pharma companies. I think this is one of the tools you're looking into it. This is simply looking to my typing behavior. And my typing behavior and the number of errors I make is linked to I basically respond to one of your drugs. It's typing behavior. But the thing is, it's not about technology. You have to make sure that me as a patient, I'm trusting you to use this, that you're not using what I type against me, that you really are just looking to my errors or my speed and not to something else. So the entire idea that we can collect data, sure, but we have to start thinking about doing that in a secure and trustworthy way. By the way, we're currently living in the Stone Ages with regard to capturing data using wearables and insidables and dermals. This, for instance, will be launched pretty soon. This is Donisi. This is replacing any kind of patch which measures heart rate, blood pressure, lung oxygen with ultrasounds. It sits in my room and it collects data, sends them into my medical dossier, basically completely wireless, right? And just to make sure that when we talk about these things, people don't get overwhelmed, what we decided to do in my team, we launched a database, open, where we collect every digital health application which gets certified on the planet. Just for people to be aware what is out there. 60% is for healthcare providers, 35% is for patients. And this only got fascinating when this happened. Very often doctors said, well, we're not interested in that because we don't have time to look to this data, it's too complex, we don't trust this data. Till this happens. This is Wittings. Wittings, they make super basic scales. I guess 20% of you have a Wittings scale at home. But since last year, they built an API which allows me to enter my scale data into the medical records in my hospital. And all of a sudden, the doctor gets attention because he starts to believe the data point as a real one, which he or she can use, right? So the fact that devices become connected to, well, an existing kind of platform opens opportunities. By the way, Wittings is going to launch in 2 months the body scale. The body scale will even be able to look to neuropathies by simply watching to transmission through my fingers. So we're going to extend what we can measure with the scale beyond overweight and obesitas. We're going to go into a number of cardiovascular diseases. But the fact that a scale can do it opens fantastic opportunities. This is one of the fastest growing digital health companies in the States. It's called Omada. And Omada was the first company which has shown that providing me a scale, a human coaching allows to change eating behavior in 3 to 4 months for the better by human interaction, but enabled by one super simple digital tool. And you start to see exciting things. This is Clue. Clue has made an algorithm which looks to the movement of my wrist, and this is coffee. This is espresso. This is a pint. They can tell, based on my wrist movement, what I'm drinking. Medtronic acquired the company. Why? Because they want to enter into the life of diabetic patients, no longer with just machines, but also with lifestyle advice. This data point gives me a way for someone who wants to be helped to get help. And this is a cool one. This is one of the first tools where I can go to a restaurant, I scan my menu, and in augmented reality, I see the plates which are not for me because they contain whatever gluten or they're, you see my point, eh? That is delight. Make sure that my restaurant here in this hotel has basically, with the J&J inside, this feature as well. So let me take you one step further. A few years ago, we started to experiment with one of these first generation of wearables. And we took 6,000 patients with diabetes, 2 groups, 3,000, 3,000, and proved that the 3,000 patients, which we could motivate to do an extra 2,000 steps a day, in 1 of 5 cases, didn't get more sick, didn't get comorbidities, and even got better. This was the first proof that letting people exercise maybe could be the best drug you could provide to people with diabetes. And so how do you have to implement that then? Because I know I have to wait more. This is a cool way. You can do that in a short time in Europe as well. You can very soon select the favorite character from your favorite Netflix series as a coach on your smartphone. And only if you exercise enough, you can watch the next episode of your favorite series already. I have seen Squid Game 2 already, you not. That was a pretty cool experience. You see my point, eh? You gave me an experience, keeping me healthy, basically for free. That's how I think the world is going to look like. And if you then start to see the first companies which really have good clinical evidence that you can revert chronic disease back to normal, we start to get payers' attention, we start to get nations' attention. That the future is not just about cure, but that the future might be about predicting and preventing as well. And so then we have to start thinking about how we bring that to our patients, right? This one, you know, eh? I guess you've been experiencing what you could do with these kind of loudspeakers, right? It's simply search by voice. Eh? So I gave one of these things to my father and used that to tell him, Daddy, it's time to take your medication, which he found cool but not cool enough because I didn't like that Siri voice. No one likes the Siri voice. So we scouted for a piece of technology, Lyrebird, and Lyrebird allows me to talk to my computer for 2 minutes, and after 2 minutes I can type whatever I like, which gets pronounced with my voice, which we combined on the loudspeaker. And all of a sudden my father hears me say, "Daddy, it's time to take your medication." It makes me a better son. I'm not there, but it makes me more empathic, right? And he liked it. Technology makes us better humans, really. It's not about technology against human, it's technology which makes us better. And just like I mentioned earlier, a number of things I think we can only do at this point in time with technology. Download this little gentleman, this he or she tonight. This is Woobot. This is my Psy. If I am anxious, he, she gets me through it, really. And by the way, we're now playing with a company in New Zealand. They're called Soul Machines to really make, well, people I trust, but in digital versions, which I can take here. This is what I promised you to do. This is Virgils. This is, well, one of the first cool examples of what I think the metaverse is going to look like. For instance, we work together. You are my Psy. You are my colleague patient. We're going to go together as avatars to a scenery we built. I like going to museums. That's the museum we built. And so we're going to walk in this kind of room next to each other, and we're going to see there's paintings here, right? And this is the painting. And we're standing here in front, and you're saying, well, wow, that painting, whew, this gives me the strength that whatever happens in the outside world, I'm protected. I like that painting. I click, it's on OpenSea, I download this as an NFT, and a piece of art becomes part of my healing. This comes from a given artist who can say, well, I made a piece of art uniquely for Koen. This is, I think, a way where we can start to think about the entire process of building CAR-Ts to dissect in units where every unit of that process becomes an NFT, a little piece with a digital kind of signature which is unique to me as your patient. And so in this world, you might argue that if we're going to be able to generate more data, which makes us more wise, then at least we will have the power to anticipate things from happening. And if we can anticipate things from happening, I believe we can delete the biggest friction in sick care which there is, which is getting sick in the first place. Now I hear you think, well, whoa. How on earth are we going to deal with privacy, with ethics? Can my child still be handicapped? So that you're not coming to my cradle and say, well, your child is handicapped, you should have known that. I mean, let's park that, but the privacy part, right. Today is Wednesday, yeah. Who is willing to tell me where you will be Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock? Raise hands. This is, okay, 3, 4. This is the 5, okay. This is the lowest number ever. This is pretty scary. This is not even 10%. The majority of you thinks it's none of your business, right? Well, who of you went to Disneyland before Corona in the States? Anyone? Before you go to Disneyland, you get a box sent home, this box, with magic bands. Real, eh? It's everything you've seen is real, by the way. Magic bands. Magic bands, my name, the name of my part, the name of my kids. I start wearing the band, enter the park, and I don't have to pay. That's the product. Free entrance. I mean, wireless payments. That's the product. But you know what I hate when I go to Disneyland? That's waiting 45 minutes in line in front of Avatar with my kids. Not nice. 5 minutes before 3 o'clock, that band tells me, if you leave now from where you are to Avatar, there is no line. That's a pretty cool service. I'm willing to give up a data point, my location, on a square meter at 3 o'clock to get that in return, right? That's my point. A patient is willing to share something with you if he or she gets something in return. But the real cool thing is we entered the park. When we entered the park, my wife got flowers. Would it have been a problem if she would not have received flowers? No. But the flowers we will never forget. By the way, we stayed there for a night. The flowers went into the room. Why did we get the flowers? My wife's birthday is the 4th of September. We came there the weekend of the 4th of September. I had filled in a form with the birthdays of my kids and my wife. They used the data points I didn't endorse them for, but I could live with that. You see my point? Don't forget that. The world is really, it's not about privacy. This is my mother in China. I mean, in Japan. Well, this would be my mother in Japan. She got Alzheimer's. But if she leaves her service home, she gets lost. But she gets a belt, which is an air belt. And when she falls, it blows. But she's tracked 24/7. They love that. I mean, the children love it as well. 24/7 tracking is fine because you give me a service in return. But for that reason, this needs to be right. I need to trust you, right? This is Airbnb. This guy, last night, he had the keys of my house and basically slept in my bed, which is based on trust, right? 3 million transactions, only 3 times it went wrong. That's 0. So this is how Airbnb looks like. You know Airbnb, huh? Okay, this is Airbnb. This is a little nice town in Belgium. It's Bruges. This is the average price. This is basically how it looks from the inside. And with a few clicks, I do, well, what I need to do. Airbnb has no access to, well, they did no access to bricks and hotels. Now they do, but look to this. That's my point. This is San Francisco. Blue, hotels in San Francisco. Red, Airbnbs in San Francisco. One data platform brought hospitality to an entire city. This is what we're going to do with healthcare as well. We're going to have a number of data platforms where we can build services on so that we can bring healthcare to an entire city. So how are we going to do that? That's the last things I'm going to tell. I'm going to use the example of this company, Best Buy. Best Buy basically is a consumer electronics retailer, like Dixon in the UK, MediaMarkt, or MediaMarkt, you know, I guess, or Van den Burg in Belgium. They sell hoovers and scales and vacuum cleaners and smartphones, digital stuff. And so they noticed a few years ago that elderly people entered the store, watched 2 smartphones, never bought one. Too expensive, too complex, I cannot handle that, nothing for me. And they decided to educate a number of their sales guys, 500, to really spend time with me as an elderly. I'm 70. And so I came there, went to see, someone came to me, and took the time to explain what would be or could be in it for me. And people started to buy smartphones. Came home, didn't work, and called Best Buy. And Best Buy, again, spent an hour explaining to me how it could be beneficial for me. In that time, they didn't sell. Well, they built trust, right? Then comes Corona. And people in the US, also independent from Corona, want to stay at home as long as possible, like everywhere on the planet except in Japan. So people started to call Best Buy, Mr. Best Buy. Well, is there no electronics you can use to see whether I can safely stay at home? That I didn't fall. Is there fall detection tools? Can you watch me living? And Best Buy said yes. Best Buy now has a facility of 50 data scientists, people like you, who are running one new facility which watches 250,000 elderly people living independently at home, watched by a guardian angel called Best Buy. 3 months ago, Best Buy acquires this company, Current Health. Current Health sells certified patches on the arm, which measures 7 vitals. All of a sudden, they can run clinical trials in 250,000 elderly people they build trust with. I think you should make a deal with Best Buy. Your next generation clinical trial might occur in my home, right? That's how you build the world. Let others shine and build together, you can further. This is, by the way, LG. LG has a new service now where just like going to Netflix, I watch the channel. For me as an elderly, to explain how I can live independently myself. Which brings me to my last point. If we're going to have the ability to collect all these data somewhere, what can we do with it and how are we going to do that? Well, this is my city. For people, I don't know whether people from Belgium are sitting in the room, but you can tell from my A that I live in the center of the world, in Antwerp. If you leave, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't see you, but if you leave Antwerp, you go nowhere. That kind of idea. Huh? If it's Carter Pass 3 in Antwerp, it's 1985 in other cities. So in part of Antwerp, we have an IoT project where we monitor what happens in part of the city. So we know which turbines are on, we know which airlines are crossing the city, we know how many people cross red light, green light, we know the pollen, we know a lot. On top, in my country, it's a little bit weird, but my sick data are collected in a database which is called My Health. This is my genome. These are my brain scans. This is my voice. I can tell based on my vowel pronunciation that I'll get Parkinson's in 2 years. This is my social media profile. All these things together, they define who I am as a data point, right? Now again, so what? Well, this is the so what. Imagine you're a car manufacturer, not a drug manufacturer. Before you get a chance to make a new car, you will have to prove on a virtual copy, a digital twin, which is basically made by all the sensor data from building a car yesterday, that you can improve the car, that you can make it better. And only if you can prove it on the virtual model, you will get the resources, the money, the people to actually build the car, right? That's how we do it in Industry 4.0, standard. In 2022, we are finally ready to start building the same with humans. We start to see the first examples of a digital copy of a human, an organ, a cell type, for you now to start using to make your next generation of drugs, not to test on me, but to test on my virtual model. But second, to start become that Chinese doctor who gets trained with all the knowledge he or she should have to keep me healthy. Science fiction? I don't think so. I have the honor to guide, or to have been guiding a project in Europe called Health EU, where we brought 57 teams together with the technological expertise to build avatars, twins, by 2030, where every European would have his avatar to predict the 5 most common chronic diseases. And so that brings me to my really last point. How are we going to deal with these data? And this is something I'm going to tell you in a pretty unique way, but make a link to your company again. I think on the planet there's 3 ways to deal with data. In the US, my data go to Facebook, to Google. They built a business model around that, and that's what we get a little bit concerned with, right? In China, my data go to the government, and they decide what I do. And in Europe, we are dreaming already for I don't know how many years that the citizen might be able to decide what happens with his or her own data and provide the citizen with kind of a dashboard. Enters the gentleman who, together with the Belgian, who everybody forgot, invented the internet, Tim Berners-Lee, a guy at MIT, who after a few years started to think, well, is this now it? Or should we kind of rethink the internet? And should we envision, or could we envision a world where data are no longer stored on one place, but really get decentralized? So that a part of my data are there, and they develop something called Solid, right? Now, based on Solid, which is an open source toolbox, we now have, in my country, in Belgium, we have decided to start thinking about, can we use that to build a citizen-centric data platform, which we launch specifically to provide every Belgian a personal online data store, a pod, POD pod, where he can decide which data he uploads so that the data belong to him, he, her, and third parties can come knock on the door and say, well, I can help you, I have a service for you. So for instance, in my case, a company which claims that something as a feed nutrition might help with my eye disease, knocks my door, gets access to one data point, and gives me something in return. Or I'm allergic to gluten. That's written in my pot. My retailer sells 5,000 products, knows that I'm allergic to gluten. There is 27 products which I no longer have to watch with my glasses on and to read, is there gluten in it? I can no longer buy 27 products out of the 5,000. That's a pretty cool thing, right? Based on a data point I shared. There is one pharma company on the planet which is starting to play with this platform already under the radar. It's the company sitting here. So this is fantastic. This is supposed to launch in 3 weeks from now. I might be wrong, but if this works, I think that the entire, well, at least the European Union, but I think the rest of the world is going to look to Belgium to see how they managed to build something where the citizen, the patient, rules the game, and where we can delight the patient by providing him service after service in a secure fashion. And this is a little bit the world which was envisioned in a movie you really should see if you haven't seen it yet. This is Big Hero 6. And Big Hero 6 is about 5 friends which get to know a 6th marshmallow inflatable doctor who lives in a small tiny box in my room, and it says Janssen J&J on it. And now and then, floops, that Baymax comes out and uses all the things I've shown you at the left or at the right to give me one thing, to learn me how I can be a delightful citizen of the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Koen, for the inspiring speech. We're certainly very delighted to have you here. Unfortunately, we don't have time for the Q&A now.
Okay.
But I hope you can stay with us.
Yeah, okay.
And I encourage everyone.
I hope it was relevant and enough inspiration to say, okay, yeah. Now, no. If I may, one thing. Yes. One thing. Under your share is a small envelope with €5 in it. And I have a task for you. The person who is able to make most money out of the €5 by Monday gets a trip to the Bahamas, paid by J&J. They don't know that yet, but okay. You might argue, if you win, well, my question to you is, what do you do? So €5, that's the starting point. Yeah, indeed, that's a good one. Playing the casino, playing Euro Millions, small chance that you make something, but if you make something, I guess you don't need the trip to the Bahamas. The majority of you thinks about, well, €5, that's 2 bottles of Coke, which I give to my children, I put them in small aliquots, and I ask my children to sell them. And with every sell, I buy more. That's how you're thinking, right? Don't do that. Throw away the €5, burn them. You take a guitar. You go to the center of the place you live, been there, done that. And for 50 minutes, you're going to play the guitar. You will earn €50, even while you never do it down. It's starting from a white page. I hope that that's something you're going to remember today. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you once again. So now that Koen opened up your minds, hopefully, for our next program, which is the innovation booth. So our vendors are waiting for you upstairs, and basically I'd just like to encourage you to keep an open mind, to think out of the box, and to take in all the information and the inspiration which our partners are going to deliver to you today. We've got Deloitte, AWS, Axiom, and Anima Race upstairs, all set and waiting for you. The system is the same as yesterday, so you will find the color of your badges, and you will start in the respective meeting rooms. I'd just like to highlight that we all need to return here at 12:30 because we are going on with the 5th presenter, which is level X. So you will see some of the ideas that Koen presented here actually on stage there or up there in the innovation booth. So enjoy and feel free to engage with our vendors right after this program finished, because they will be staying with us over lunch as well.
You